Well, Bobby Kopp, welcome to the Anatomy and Clay Learning System podcast.
Thanks for having me on.
Thanks for doing this. We appreciate it. We want to rest for those watching on Zoom, on video, on YouTube, they might see somebody in the background who looks like he needs medical attention. We want to point out that that's not a real person at this point.
Yeah, this is my part of my lab. So I'm blessed to be at Milton Hershey School. And my first year here, they let me design the classroom. So this is a snapshot of part of it, but I'm zooming from Milton Hershey School.
That's fantastic. Why don't you give us just a little spin around look at your whole classroom there? Because it really looks like a complete facility. You got the hospital room set up there, the curtains and everything. And then
we met up with PA College of Health Science, which is one of the local colleges in the area, kind of a tech school / college, where they focus on obviously health science related programs, and they had just redone their building. So we had them come in my first year. So this would be 5 years ago now. And we all kind of figured out what space we had. It looked nothing like this before this. It was kind of an average classroom. There was carpeting. Now it has a nice kind of hard floor that's a little easier to clean. And we made it into an open lab space. There's a second classroom as well. I guess I can walk over real quick. So I'm not the only teacher in this pathway. There's Sal Russo, who also teaches right next to me. His class is a little more open. And then we have four more patients with full headboards.
Right, right.
His background is radiology, so the space is a little more unique to him.
Wow. It looks like it's really well set up for hands-on learning.
Yep. And we did it right before COVID, so the timing was a little off there, but we're getting back to it. So.
Yeah. Well, set the bigger scene. Can you tell us about Milton Hershey School? Where are you located exactly? Are you part of a school district? Tell us about the school.
Sure. So Milton Hershey School was established in 1909 by Milton Hershey. And so Milton S. Hershey Company, Hershey, PA. He's the kind of myth and legend that basically made chocolate American, and then mass produced it and brought it to the average person, made it affordable. Part of his legacy, he and his wife, Catherine, could not have kids. And so towards the end of their lives, they started up Milton Hershey School, which originally was for orphan boys. And it was more of a kind of like a tech school. And now it has kind of grown into this 2,000 plus student K through 12 school, where students will come in. Typically, to get into this private school, it's free, and it's provided for students who have social and financial difficulties. So a lot of our students do have either one parent or potentially parents who are incarcerated or parents who are going through a struggle. And so this school, the goal is to break poverty, break the cycle of poverty. So the students come here, they get clothing, food, ultimately tuition. By the end of it, they can graduate with what we call a continuing education scholarship, or a CES, where they can essentially go and get up to their bachelor's degree in basically for nothing. So its main goal is to continue the legacy of Milton S. Hershey and to break that chain of poverty, give the kids some kind of a life skill that they can take on to be employable when they graduate.
Are students from the immediate area or further around Pennsylvania?
We have students from, I believe, 38 states.
Okay, wow.
To be accepted here, typically they do start in the kind of Dauphin County area. So around Hershey, Harrisburg area. And then there's a lot of kids from Philadelphia and the greater state of Pennsylvania, so rural students as well. And then, like I said, it goes out. So we actually have one student graduated this year from Hawaii.
Ah,
So,
that's great. And is it a combination of college bound and career track, or is it primarily one or the other?
the main goal is to have them all employable when they leave here. So they all get some form of a certification, but it could be anywhere. The CES to kind of be a part of that, they have to meet some requirements, and then that will help guide like where they end up, whether they go right into a trade, whether they go to an associate's degree, or to a bachelor's. Yep.
Gotcha. And give us a little background on yourself. How did you end up here, and what have you done previously?
So my background is in nursing. I started, way back in 2004. I did EMT stuff in high school. So I got my certification. And then as soon as I turned 18, it was the day I graduated and the day I became an actual employed EMT.
Wow.
And that was back in a small town in Pennsylvania, St. Mary's, Pennsylvania. So I worked for St. Mary's area ambulance service for several years while I went through college. I went to the University of Pittsburgh, which was about 3 hours away. And I went to the School of Nursing there, got my bachelor's. After that, I moved up to Erie, Pennsylvania, worked in the ICU in St. Vincent Hospital. I moved back home to St. Mary's, Pennsylvania. So my dad was a kidney transplant patient. So he wasn't doing too hot at the time. So I moved back home to help mom take care of him. Worked in the ER in St. Mary's. And then that's when my transition, I guess, into education began. My alma mater, St. Mary's Area High School, I taught there for 3 years. And they had a kind of a similar program to MHS, where it was career focused and health occupations focused. So I kind of learned the trade of education through basically learning on the job. So a lot of it was hands-on because that's what I knew as a nurse. And I loved that those 3 years of my life were very difficult because I was teaching, trying to pay off education, dealing with the stuff with my father, still working as a nurse. And then I had to take school on top of that to be able
Wow.
to teach.
Yeah.
So it was a busy part of my life, but by the time I left there, we'd started a CNA and an EMT program at the school. And then to do that, I had to go back into nursing to work in long-term care for a year to be able to teach the CNA course.
Wow.
So there was a lot to juggle. And I kind of burnt myself out a little bit after the 3 years. And I went full-time into long-term care, which never thought I would enjoy, but I really, really did kind of find my passion for nursing in long-term care. And I think a lot of that was community-based. So that's kind of what makes MHS special, is coming from where I came from. It's a small town of, I think there's 14,000 people in a huge geographic area. But our hospital kind of takes care of almost like the Tri-County area back home. And so a lot of the community was really close knit. And I took care of people who knew my grandparents, and my grandma, when she fell and broke her femur, she came to the facility that I worked at. So it just put a different spin after being trained in a hospital and living in a different area, going back home and then kind of being a part of that community that I grew up in, and being a part of the education system there, the ER. I coached multiple things. That sense of community was really nice. And then when I came to MHS a few years later, it was just interesting how, for example, with the coaching thing, when I played sports in high school, on the ride home, my dad would kind of talk to me about, like, what did you do right? What did you do wrong? and kind of helped me focus on how do I think myself through these things and then maybe think about the future. And dealing with the students here, they don't necessarily always have those connections with an adult. So that's kind of the goal of this program here, is to get students to have those meaningful connections with parents, sponsors, and staff, so that they can help to process that stuff. So to kind of go back to that, a lot of our students have high ACE scores. So basically childhood events that would cause some trauma in their lives. And so how do you deal with trauma? It's, going back to the basics, making sure they're getting enough sleep, making sure they're getting the proper nutrition, exercise, and then those healthy relationships. So kind of going through what I went through and then ending up here, it just makes sense. I don't know how else to state it. But.
Yeah. And just say again, how long have you been at Milton Hershey?
Sure. So I just finished up my 5th year. And then I've done, this is my first year of coaching, and kind of really getting ingrained into the network of MHS. It's such a big place. It takes a while to kind of put it all together.
What are you coaching?
I coached freshman football in the fall. And then I help run the scoreboard for the swim team in the wintertime. And then this year, one of the coaches left for track. So I ended up being a shot put coach, which was very interesting. I was a distance runner in high school. So I went a little out of my comfort zone, but it's great to see my kids in a different spot. So not just in the classroom.
I want to go back for a second to your high school days. Where did this passion for being an EMT and working in emergency situations, wanting to be in an ambulance, where did that come from, do you think?
I feel like I always kind of knew, just because I was interested in the human body, but then obviously most medical people have events that happened. My younger brother, when I was in middle school, he was 9, was hit by a school bus. And he almost lost his leg. He was drugged 15 feet up and then realized they hit him, backed up, drug him another 10 feet back. So yeah, it was one of those events where I kind of had to learn how to take care of my brother. I felt kind of helpless when I arrived. Still remember all the details of that day. It was snowing. It was right before Christmas. So
you weren't right there. You weren't right there when it happened, but nearby.
No, but I was there before the EMS showed up.
Oh,
yeah. So,
oh boy,
that was one of those scenarios where that helplessness kind of gives you that, I don't ever want to feel that way, where I don't know what to do. So, and sometimes obviously, and there's not always something you can do, but at least I can know that going in, what the limitations and how can I comfort people when need be.
Right. Well, may I ask how your brother's doing today?
He's great. Yeah,
that's good.
He just had a baby. His daughter Clara is now, I believe, 4 months now. So
that's great.
Yeah,
good
so it's all good.
Glad to hear it. Well, take us then to tell us a little bit about the kinds of courses you teach and how you've got that set up and arranged at Milton Hershey School today.
Sure. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here.
Okay, great.
Initially, when I came in to MHS, they really had a focus on EMS. And they had a EMS program here, an EMT program. So I kind of redesigned it to be a little more holistic. And they did cover more than just EMT, but I kind of took the format that I used at my previous school, because I took it over from the teacher that I had in high school, and then reinvented it a little bit. So I used that experience I had with curriculum to help mold our program here. And Sal LaRusso helped me as well. So freshman year, at this school, there's 13 pathways in career and tech ed. And their freshman year, which is a year when a lot of students show up here, they can come all the way from K up. So some students are lifers, but we get a big cohort that comes in their freshman year.
Okay.
So it's a good time to get a survey for what they would like to do. So they pick 4 pathways of the 13 to kind of explore. And they get roughly about 12 classes in each of those courses where they kind of explore what the content would look like. They get obviously exposed to the teachers and see if it's what they thought it was going to be. So it's kind of like shadowing for each of the programs. So there I cover mostly the professional characteristics, and we do some law and ethics cases, basically case studies for students to look through so they can figure out what healthcare looks like from the professional lens. Then 9th grade year, if they select our pathway, they go through the history of healthcare, law and ethics, careers in health science, and healthcare systems. So they kind of get a eye in the sky view of what the healthcare system looks like. 10th grade, they get into medical terminology and the basics of anatomy. And then 11th grade, they really focus on the anatomy and phys to get college ready. So the way that I teach the anatomy and physiology, because that's the course that I really focus on, is very career focused and very hands-on skill oriented. It's pretty intense. We're known to be one of the harder pathways, but it's to set them up because usually anatomy and physiology is the kind of make or break class or the weed out class for most of the health sciences. And then 12th grade year, they kind of go on their own. And we have an agreement with HAC, which is Harrisburg Area Community College, where they can go, and we had 9 students take and complete the CNA program here, so nurse assistants.
Right.
And they all passed and all did well. So it was super exciting to see that go through. That was the first year we were able to kind of post-COVID jump in and get all of that stuff done. So we also had 3 students from our pathway take the EMT program and get through it. So
wow.
I'm excited to see that because that's really where I developed my passion for nursing and really kind of figured out what nursing was, because those are the people you deal with when you come into the ER with a patient. So
yeah,
they can also take some college courses. Yeah,
I was just going to say that's a really good indicator that you're got a quality program if those students go out and pass that test.
Yeah, it's not easy.
Excellent.
We are partnered with the Hershey Medical Center, which is the medical school over there is Penn State Health. And so we're pretty close. They're right down the street. It's less than a 10-minute bus ride to put our kids in a bus. We send them over and they can, and we'll kind of see that they can do experiences with that. And then we also have a lot of guest speakers that come over. So we had surgical tech come in and doff and don the PPE with our students. We had some researchers who deal with PTSD in mice and rats. And so what they're doing there is fixing some slides, and those are mice brains. Over at the medical center, they have a VR lab and a 3D printing program.
Wow.
So yeah, it's very, very cool. And so this is one of our students, Joy. She just graduated. She's going to Brown University, and she went on and was in the cadaver lab over there with the VR headset. So that's an actual scanned in patient, and that she's going through that process with them. And then this is Maya down in the corner. She's one of our EMT students, and she is looking at some of the 3D printing stuff. She actually made Founders Hall is one of the buildings that is kind of like iconic for our campus. Beautiful marble building.
Yeah.
And she 3D printed this little, she designed it and printed it. And she made them into Christmas ornaments. So she made them
That's
around
great.
Christmas time.
Yeah, yeah.
But
Wow.
some of the, why do we do 3D printing? We had a connection with some of the medical students. So I'm holding up a 3D printed replica of a patient's facial bones. And so they provided us with some de-identified CAT scan images. And then we took those CT images and we ran it through an open source program, got the G code for it, and then we printed the facial bone. So this patient has
Wow.
a deviated septum. So they
Wow.
could kind of explore the anatomy through 3D printing it, which is pretty awesome. But Mark Levine is an amazing medical student over at the Med Center, and he's collaborated with us and helped us put that all together.
Wow.
So we have a really strong connection with the medical center.
Fantastic.
They've checked out the life support helicopters, Lifeline, and the ambulance over at the Med Center as well. And then we have a bunch of like student clubs. So there's all kinds of experiences. I try to make it as exciting for the kids, but then obviously this is a lot of the kind of glorious stuff that we do. There's a lot of intense academic work as well. So hands-on things, we do a lot of stuff with so practical evaluations that we do with our mannequins, similar to what you would do in a nursing school, or, if you were going to take your practical portion of the EMT test, we get the students ready. We do some simulated blood labs and cadaver, or I guess dissection stuff here. I utilize Minecraft in the classroom. So this is a sim hospital. Over COVID, we kind of weren't able to go over to the hospital.
Right.
So they have this Minecraft system where they can go into the hospital, get an actual patient and chart. Would you like to see that?
Sure. Oh my gosh.
So I'm booting up Minecraft.
That's
and we're
fantastic.
going into the world.
Is this your idea to do it?
Yeah, it's Minecraft education. So our school picked it up right around the time of COVID. And it was just a way for our students to kind of have something other than just staring into Zoom. So they have to go into and navigate the hospital, find the nurse's station. And I can just load them in here. And then once they find their patient, they can go assess their patient. And their patient information's in there, so they can find their date of birth, their medical record number. I can scan in images. So
wow.
they can see like this patient has shingles. Can give them some subjective data so they can learn the difference between objective and subjective. And then they'll have to go back and actually chart on their patient. So they have to go back to the nurse's station, click on the patient, and then it'll open it up into our learning platform, which is called Canvas.
Wow.
And then
so there's some connection between Minecraft and Canvas where you've loaded lots of information data.
Yeah, I can link the Canvas right into the Minecraft, and then when they click the link, it opens up the Canvas for them, and they see a medical chart that is created in Google Sheets, and they can click off, the patient was awake, alert, oriented, and oriented to person, place, and time. And then this patient had skin lesions, so they would have to go in and figure out, using the medical terminology, what kind of skin lesion was on there, where was it located. So it's really getting them. I went through nursing school, and I did fairly well in nursing school, but I didn't learn as much as I learned on the first day of the job, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I am a book learner, but I wasn't able to really apply it until I actually had to sit down, go through the patient chart, assess my patient, figure out what I needed to put in, and then just going through that process, you learn the systems better. So I tried to design the course to be as similar to what the real world experience will be. So each of our mannequins in the background have a patient chart, and that patient chart has their face sheet, all of the, like dispositions and lab work, their medications. It'll all be on their chart. And then
Wow.
that will all kind of go to their medical record. So the electronic medical record that they'd see in Canvas. So
I
they're
can't
building,
imagine.
yeah, they're building their chart out as they go.
I can't imagine how much work this took to build behind the scenes.
That the beauty of having, I guess, if there's it's not a beauty, but if there's a silver lining to COVID, it was that it allowed for some time to re-engineer things and recreate things. So
Wow.
it started with Minecraft, and I was like, why don't I do this for my actual mannequins?
Wow.
So that's,
And once you've got it built, it should last quite a while. There's
exactly. Yep.
Yeah. Wow.
Let's see.
That's amazing, I have to say.
So back to our slideshow, the main certifications that we have are similar to what you would be experienced to in the real world. So first aid and CPR. Every student who goes through the pathway should end up with that. The child abuse mandated reporter, which is a Pennsylvania, I think, specific certification, that anytime you deal with children, you have to be exposed to how do you report child abuse. So we go through that. FEMA, which is the introduction to incident command. And we actually take that a little bit further. This year, we got together with the Law and Public Safety program, which is another one of the CPE pathways. Paul Gaspich is the career and tech educator there. He was previously and worked with the state police. But he teaches his students community emergency response team certifications. So his students are practicing that part, and then we set up a triage, and then we had this kind of like simulated disaster response where they would walkie-talkie in, say, hey, we have this patient, they're in this area on campus, and then the CERT team would have to use their map, their compass, and go find the patient. And then one of our medical students would be with them and help them to stabilize the patient, transport them back. And then our students in triage would decide, was it a black, red, green patient, to get them where they needed to be. So it was kind of a nice way for collaboration between two pathways that obviously are going to work together in the real world. And then it made the certification process a little less like just point and click kind of thing.
Yeah.
We also do direct care staff training, which is kind of a general, if you're going to take care of patients, these are the essentials you need. And then to get a little further into that, they can take their nurse assisting program through HAC or the EMT, and then EVOC is the emergency vehicle operations certification. So they can drive the ambulance and they can be an EMT.
Wow.
So kind of ties back to our founder, right? The goal is to get students ready to be employable by the time they graduate.
That's great. Wow.
Oh. Here's another big thing. So this year, we actually went over we took 28 students, and this is another part of the school where they want them to be culturally competent students. So we took 28 students abroad over spring break this year. So 28 students went to the UK, and we studied the history of healthcare.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So This picture is from Edinburgh.
You might
We got our
want
care
to come,
pictures in Edinburgh.
maybe come off shared screen. We can see that a little bit bigger.
Oh, sorry.
If,
There we go.
yep. Yep. There we go. Wow.
So those are two of our health science students. That's in Edinburgh. We were right outside of I think Mary King Close. We went into where the plague would have been. So we kind of went into this underground living space where everybody was kind of, smushed together and living in their filth. And it was a really eye-opening experience as to like what cities used to be like before there was sanitation and kind of the history of how our system works the way that it does and why it works the way that it does.
Yeah.
We got to see Edinburgh University, which is where all kinds of like lint was recognized there, who was vitamin C, linking vitamin C to scurvy. Chloroform, Simpson was there. Who else? There was all kinds of different people that we talk about in our from our book. They learn about it, and then this kind of brought it to life. We went to London after that. We spent 3 days in Edinburgh, and then we trained down to London, and we got to see like Florence Nightingale's, who's the founder of modern nursing.
Right.
We went to her museum and saw her story. They got to, check out some hospitals and learn about the differences between nursing in the UK compared to nursing in America. And we got to talk with one of the nurses. So yeah, it was a really eye-opening experience for our kids.
And you designed that whole itinerary?
No.
Oh, okay.
There's a separate branch at the school that deals with the study abroad stuff.
Wow.
But I was blessed to go on it. Yeah.
Wow. Well, in addition to all these rich experiences that you're providing for students, what drew your eye to Anatomy and Clay? What pulled you in, or did you just happen to run across it?
So right before COVID, I tried to get into the Anatomy and Clay program, and then it went virtual. There was one in New Jersey, which is somewhat close to us, and I had planned to go there with a colleague. And then obviously that didn't work. It did go virtual, and there was I got the stuff to do it virtually, and it kind of just wasn't the same. So then it kind of opened up again. So I was like, this is the perfect experience perfect time for me to get this experience. So I still ended up doing a virtual one, but it was awesome. It was a 2-day, 8-hour program, or 2 days of 8-hour sessions. And you can kind of see it behind me there.
Yeah.
Why do I want to do it? Hands-on is the way a lot of our kids learn. And by integrating a little bit of reading with the hands-on stuff, it just breaks it up and makes it into a nice kind of smoother learning process. I also plan to hopefully integrate this into maybe some of our patient scenarios. If they have Crohn's, or if they have, a muscle strain or something like that, have the kids integrate that into the learning process. So hopefully these will be basically the mannequin from the inside, and then we can kind of grow it together.
Yeah. What did you think of the professional development, the 2 days? Pretty intense?
My hands were sore. But I really enjoyed it. It was fast paced. So I wasn't bored at all. It was all like everything was intentional. It was eye opening for sure. So yeah, it was kind of a mad dash. And then at the end, it was just like, wow, look what I did. This is great.
Yeah. Did you do that at home, or set up a place at school to do it?
I did it from home.
Okay. And then the materials arrived for you to work with, obviously.
Yep, the materials arrived actually to the school, because that's where we ordered them to. And then I just took them home and kind of did the prep work a couple nights before. But yeah, it just came in a box. There was a couple pieces to put together, but it was pretty simple. And there's videos that I was able to watch on YouTube to kind of help that process. Extruded the clay out into the strings so that I was ready to go. But everything was labeled. Yeah, it was great.
So do you think you'll begin to roll these out in the classroom in the coming school year?
Yes. The goal is so since it's a private school, we don't have the Perkins money that other schools have. So I have to really kind of figure out ways to make it work. So I went through my advisory committee, which is a group of professionals in the area that support my program. And they all supported it. It was great. It was unanimous. So the hands-on stuff, the fine motor skills, especially for kids who just went through a pandemic where they weren't doing all the school activities, like simple things like cutting things out. It's just good to really focus on the hands-on learning.
You think it'll go over well with your students? I mean, it sounds like you're already pretty used to hands-on approach anyway. So
oh, they're pumped. Yeah, as soon as they saw the model that I made in the 2-day seminar, they were, when are we going to do that? So yeah, I'm excited to get them started.
Fantastic. And would that be in the anatomy and physiology course in that junior year, probably?
Yeah. Yep. I plan to do it. It'll be their junior year because I have them for 2.5 hours at a clip. So it's a long time frame. It's just another activity I can integrate into the program to make it, less daunting. They can get up and move around a little bit because I found it easier to stand while I was doing it. So it's kind of all around will be a good way for their, almost use it like a brain break. Where they're not so focused on reading or anything like that. They're just in a process of learning.
Well, just as we kind of wrap up here, I mean, to think about all the things you've done and looking back on your own early days of just following a passion into a career and then continuing to pursue the education you needed to get to additional stages in your career and then turn it back around and be the teacher who's helping provide a guided path for these students into the same career and helping the world and helping people who need medical attention, whether it's a immediate trauma situation or long-term care, medical, hospital support, whatever. You must feel pretty satisfied with sort of the cycle and where you are, what you're doing.
Maybe someday I'll get there. I still feel like there's so much work to do to get everything, refined and the way I would like it to run. Because it's a lot to juggle around. I'll go back to the idea that the thing that makes me tick is community. And that's the beautiful thing about MHS is I put in all the passion because I'm surrounded by, professionals around me that are putting in the passion. The students, it's a different type of student here. It took me a few years to kind of figure it out because coming from public ed, you deal with students and then you deal with parents and then you deal with, the issues there. And these students, that to take it back to the beginning, especially with coaching, but also with education, it's after the fact when you're able to, it's not a car ride home, having to talk about, what you did right and what you did wrong. But there's more time here for those types of critical conversations with the kids. And it's extremely rewarding to work here.
Fantastic. Wow. Well, thank you so much for the rundown, Bobby. Maybe we could reach out to you maybe next spring and just see how it's going and get some stories about how the first year was going with Anatomy and Clay and how your students took to it. But in the meantime, thank you so much for your time, and we wish you all the success.
All right. Thanks, Mark.